My name is Achim Hurrelmann. I'm Professor of Political Science at Carleton University. My research is focused on the politics of the European Union. I teach European Union politics in all of its facets, but my own research focuses mainly on two broad areas. The first is contributing to the more normative discussion about a democratic deficit of the European Union, or more broadly whether there is a democratic deficit and what can be done to fix it if it exists. My main position in that debate is that there's nothing structurally that makes the EU unable to become democratic, but that its current institutional system indeed has democratic problems because it does not allow citizens to effectively hold European decision makers accountable for what they have done. However, there are some distinct problems in trying to fix this democratic problem. So it's not that there would be a magic bullet solution. The European Union, given how it's structured and its internal complexity, is a system that makes it very difficult for citizens to effectively come in. And it's not that easy, particularly given the level of interest, which is relatively low, of citizens in European affairs, to devise a more democratic European structure. And that brings me to my second research focus, which is more empirical and looks at various discourses at various levels about European integration. I've done more recently some research on the citizen level, so what do citizens actually talk about when they talk about the European Union, if they talk about that at all. I've conducted focus groups in various European countries in order to find out whether topics of EU politics resonate at all with the citizens, and the results were very mixed. So I definitely did not have the feeling and did not get the sense that some other authors who mainly rely on public opinion research get, that say that the EU is now comprehensively politicized. We found very differentiated patterns of politicization in this research. Many citizens were comfortable to talk about European integration in very general terms, in terms of membership, in terms of should there be enlargement, yes or no. But when it came to institutional specificity, when it came to questions of EU policy, these issues were largely irrelevant to them. They just didn't have consolidated opinions about that. And that links in a very interesting way back to the issue of democracy, because I think it shows us that the way in which the democratic deficit of the EU has been understood in the academic literature is not necessarily the same way in which citizens conceive of it. For citizens, the democratic deficit, at least that's what our research shows, is not so much a question of institutional design, but it's a much more fundamental problem of disenfranchisement, of feeling, of getting the sense that the EU institutions are remote, complex, not really understandable from the citizen's perspective. And that's why if you confront citizens with institutional proposals, shouldn't the European Parliament get more power? They will not be convinced that this fixes the democratic deficit, because many of these proposals rely on the very same institutions that they view with suspicion and consider remote, and basically don't have the sense that they understand them properly. Last element of my recent research has focused on more elite debates about European integration, where I've done some research on media debates with a focus on legitimacy discourses. So what are some of the prominent argumentative constructions to legitimate or delegitimize European integration? There we've done media research in various countries. The results of that are quite compatible with the results of the focus groups. Obviously, if you look at quality media, we will find more engagement with EU politics. But even here in these more elite discourses, it's striking that discourses are often conducted in very general terms. It's often the EU, no differentiation between various EU institutions and so on. So even the media, relatively well-educated elite actors, tend to reproduce this very general view view of European integration. What's interesting in looking at these media debates is also that you can try to pinpoint what the resources for legitimacy of the European Union can be. We found that whenever questions of democracy are brought up, their evaluation in a media article tended to become negative. So democracy is nothing that legitimates the European Union. With respect to more output-oriented arguments, what does the EU do, what does it actually achieve, we found more encouraging results. So in these media debates, it is often pointed out that European integration and EU politics has had some substantive positive effects, but viewed in the terms of democracy, the result is very negative. So in a way, this topic of democracy ties together all of these various components of my research, and I look at it from very different perspectives: normative, empirical, citizens, elites, and their discourses.